All right, we've made it to season 2. It's a follow-up season for original showrunners Matt Groening, Sam Simon, and James L. Brooks, where they get to show what they learned from their first season. What directions are they going to take the show in? Are we going to see some minor tweaks, major shifts? Is this an entirely different show? Hi, I'm Torin, and welcome to Torin Loves the Simpsons. Today we're looking at Season 2, Episode 1, Bart Gets an F, an episode where Bart gets a D-. As always, we're starting with the humor. I spent a large portion of last season complaining that humor was too sparse. And this episode is a significant step in the right direction, though it still has a ways to go before we achieve the kind of humor that would define the show's legacy. The show is getting a bit wackier, like when the family shushes the pets, and is also hitting us with more visual jokes like "Don't Sled on Me" and Skinner apprehending Martin painting graffiti during Bart's "I Passed" montage. And just in general, we have more jokes and jabs and such. Not everything hits it out of the park, certainly, but it still just overall feels more fun and lively than watching a lot of Season 1 episodes. The main thing that separates the kinds of humor we're seeing now and the kinds of humor that define later seasons is the pacing and spacing. I talked a bit in my review of The Call of the Simpsons about joke combos, and I think that concept is really important here. As a recap, joke combos are exactly what they sound like, when the show hits us with multiple jokes in quick succession in a way that conventional sitcoms with laugh tracks could never do. I'm very much cribbing on Super Eye Patch Wolf's work in the video The Fall of the Simpsons, How It Happened, so definitely watch that video if you haven't already, link in the description. The point I'm making here is that we still are not seeing that kind of thing a whole lot yet. I don't notice a single joke combo in the entire episode. We're still just getting one joke at a time, and as far as the pacing of the jokes we get, with the exception of visual jokes, which by nature tend to be quick and punchy, the jokes, or at least the ones good enough for me to take note of them, are almost all built on setups, and often longer setups. For example, my favorite joke of the episode is when Bart assures Lisa his bases are covered and he calls Milhouse to get his answers. And then when Bart turns in his test, Mrs. Krabappel remarks that this test is worse than Milhouse's exam. That joke is built on a pretty lengthy setup of Bart talking to Lisa, then talking to Milhouse, then Bart taking the test, then Edna grading the test, and then we finally get our payoff. I'm not saying the long setup doesn't work. I discussed my love for obnoxiously long setup jokes in There's No Disgrace Like Home, after all. I'm just pointing out that this is a different style and a slower pace, and that still means fewer jokes, and therefore less joke variety than later seasons. Really, the only non-visual joke I can think of that's punchy and short in format is when, after Bart asks Martin for help, Martin drops that sick burn on him that you do need someone's help to get a passing grade, to which the only direct setup is Bart asking for help. For comparison, let's look at the variety of jokes within just the first minute of Marge versus the monorail, not counting the intro sequence. I'm picking this episode because I think it's pretty well agreed upon by Simpsons fans that it's a great episode, with many considering it one of the best. First off is the fact that the entire first scene is a joke in that it's parodying the Flintstones. Then there's a super quick and punchy joke in Homer crashing through his car window, and then the wackiness of Homer recognizing his impending car crash and doing nothing about it. Then another parody, this time of the Beverly Hills Cop theme, and a screw the audience joke of Smithers stealthily waving Burns in, and Burns just casually walking in with a dolly. That's about as much variety of jokes in 1 minute as this episode has in its entire runtime. And that's the difference between the humor we're getting now and the humor that defined the show's true legacy. Variety of jokes is important for a sitcom, because more varied jokes are more likely to have something for everyone. This episode makes it clear that the show still is not always a comedy. That transformation will come later. But how about the actual jokes and humor of this episode? Well, they're pretty good. Nothing to write home about or anything, no particular standout jokes or moments, but solid enough that I'm going to give it a B+. As for the plot, this episode really takes Bart to a new level. We already saw some emotional depth in him with Krusty Gets Busted, but this episode hits even harder when Bart initially fails his exam at the end. The stakes are a little more real and personal, and we have the entire episode building up to this moment, so it hits with more momentum. And on that note, this is a very well-constructed plot. establishing up front what kind of student Bart is, and progressing into the crisis at hand and offering Bart a journey to prove himself. The fact that he initially fails is a nice twist. It's certainly not the most innovative plot the show has ever done, but it's still a nice way to break up the linear progression of Bart works hard to Bart succeeds, and it makes the ultimate victory feel even more earned. The episode also briefly but effectively comments on how schooling can impact children psychologically when Dr. Pryor mentions how holding Bart back would damage him emotionally. The show emerged as a force of counterculture when it was new, and this is a great example of that counterculture, of the show questioning if the system we have is really the best way we could be educating our kids. I also want to comment on Lisa's explanation to Bart that God is more powerful than Mom and Dad put together. That feels so authentic to how kids of their age would see things, especially with this being before Lisa's conversion to Buddhism. Really, just in general, not to foreshadow too much, I think this season's production run has some amazing Bart and Lisa material, and it really uses them in effective, but mostly down-to-earth ways. It's clear the show's staff made the most of the opportunity between seasons to reflect on what worked and what didn't about season 1, and to keep organized with regards to what world-building developments they had made so far. When it comes to how fleshed out and Simpsonian things feel, this episode feels like a notable leap ahead of where even the best episodes of season 1 were at. I don't notice a single weird bit of characterization, and all the backgrounds and details feel right. Still an early seasons version of feeling right, but they feel right. And with that, I'm giving this episode's plot an S-. Also, random fun fact of the episode, I'm a total math nerd, and I was curious about how feasible it would be for a one-page test to provide a result of 59%. Now, from how the test is animated while Edna is grading it, it's clear there are 15 questions on it. And if all questions bear equal weight, a 59% would not be possible because 8 out of 15 is about 53%, and 9 out of 15 is exactly 60%. However, if there are either 2 questions on the test worth 2 points each, or 1 question worth 3 points, then it's possible for Bart's grade to be 10 out of 17, which is 58.8%, which would therefore be rounded to 59%. I'm perfectly satisfied with that. And lastly, what's up with the color of Bart's shirt? It strikes me as an error in getting back up and running in the animation process that got fixed for later episodes. Even though this wasn't the first episode to enter process with its production code of 7F03, seems this was probably the first to get animated. And now for the final rating. We have a B+ for humor and an S- for plot, and I'm happy to call this episode a solid A overall. It's a really good one and a solid introduction to the new season. I'm really looking forward to digging deeper into season 2. And so, to answer the question I posed at the beginning of this video, I'd say it's mostly minor tweaks at this point. This is still a very character-driven and down-to-earth show, but so far we're shifting in the sitcom-y direction that defines the show later on. Thanks for watching. Please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel and hit the bell to turn on notifications. All those things really do help the channel. Up next, we have Simpson and Delilah, and I will see you in that video.